everyone, it's Meg, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys some books I have read recently. I actually filmed this video last week, but for some reason I have lost half of the footage, probably because the battery ran out when I was filming, so you know, I lost half of it. So I'm filming it again. I didn't want to rush my tea and I was too hungry to film without eating, so we are going to chill and I'm going to eat my tea, which is some sort of curry in a pot, because we are currently having our kitchen done and so we don't have anywhere to eat. So it's like this, just like, yeah, it's a fun time. So we are going to just do a super chilled video and I'm going to chat to you guys about my books that I have read recently, and I'm going to eat at the same time because your girl is hungry. So I have 5 books to talk to you guys about today, so without further ado, let's get into the video. The first book that I have is Anne's House of Dreams by L.M. Montgomery. This is the 5th book in the Anne of Green Gables series, and if you didn't know already, over the past couple of years I have slowly been making my way through this series. This is probably maybe the 4th year, as I've usually been reading a book once a year, but I've read 2 this year. And I've adored all of the books. There are definitely some that I liked more than others. I feel like the first and the second one are my favourite, and this is probably up there with also being one of my favourites. If you didn't know about Anne of Green Gables, well, let me tell you. It is one of my favourite series of all time, and just stories in general. I think it is absolutely beautiful and wonderful, and I really want to go and live on Prince Edward Island. And it is basically about a girl named Anne who is an orphan and comes to live with the Cuthberts on Prince Edward Island in Canada. And it is basically a coming of age story as Anne grows up, and the books follow Anne as she grows up, from when she arrives at the Cuthberts as an orphan to when she goes away to school, and then obviously she gets older and starts a family. I can't talk too much about it because obviously spoilers, but this is when Anne is a lot older. She starts off being in around her mid-20s, I believe, and this doesn't take place in Avonlea, it takes place on another part of the island, and this is definitely, like I said, one of the books that I prefer more than some of the other books that I have read in the series. As always, the thing that I do notice when I'm going through this series is that Anne always has her childlike magic and her imagination that never goes away in the books as she grows older, and I think that is really wonderful to see, because obviously that is a big part of her personality. You also get to see more Gilberts in here compared to certain other novels in this series. And I love some of the new characters that are introduced in here, especially Captain Jim. I think he's absolutely wonderful. I feel like we would be great friends if he was real, but he's not, which is a shame. But I absolutely love him, and what I did notice when reading the last book in this series was that there was a lot of dialogue, of long-winded one-sided conversations, which I found extremely boring and just perfectly pointless, to be honest with you. But I didn't see that as much in this book, and I felt like if there were monologues like that, then they weren't as boring. I felt like they were kind of a bit more interesting and added to the story, or told you more about certain characters, especially Captain Jim. The stories that he tells, they are a lot more interesting than hearing some of the other dialogue that I've heard from previous characters in the series. But overall, I did really enjoy this book, and I'm really sad that this series is coming to an end for me. I've got one more book left, I believe, until I've completed it, but nonetheless it is a series that I will be returning to throughout my lifetime. It is a story that is so near and dear to my heart, that I have grown up with, and it will always have a special place on my bookshelf. And I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Food break! Woohoo! The next book that I have is one of my favourite books that I'm going to talk to you guys about in this video, because it was such a surprise and wonderful surprise, and I'm so glad that I love it, and that is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. If you have been a on BookTube for a little while now, you would know that this is a very popular and a very loved book by a very well-known and also loved author. This book has been around for quite a while, and it is about a girl named Kath who is going into her first year of university with her sister Ren, her twin sister Ren, and it is basically about her first year and how she handles it, as Kath is quite an introvert and her sister Ren is the total opposite. She loves to party, she's very social, and she just wants to live her life to the fullest, whereas Kath just wants to avoid all social contact possible and just write fan fiction for a book series called Simon Snow, which is like a chosen one take. And Kath deals with anxiety and social anxiety, which definitely comes through in this book and is something that I found I could definitely relate to. I just adored this book so much. I didn't have that many expectations going into it. Obviously it has been around for quite a while now and so many people love it, but I didn't feel the pressure to love it because I just didn't know what to expect going into it. But luckily I absolutely love this book so much. It's made me so happy. I haven't read a book in such a long time that has brought me so much joy, and words cannot express how much I love this book. I felt like I could relate to Kath a lot throughout the story, obviously with the anxiety representation and also just being a bit of an introvert and learning to put yourself out there as somebody who is 110% an introvert. And I really enjoyed the characters in this. Obviously I loved Kath and I liked Ren. I especially loved Kath's roommate called Regan and also her friend Levi. I'm guessing it's called Levi. In my head I was calling him Levi. Personally Levi sounds better to me, but I think it is Levi, so we're going to go with that. And I love the relationship between Levi and Kath, and how he wants her to go out and experience things and just kind of loosen up a bit and enjoy her college experience. Like I said, words cannot express how much I love this book. I adore it with all my heart. It has now become one of my all-time favourite books of the year and also just in life in general, and I cannot wait till I get to read this again. It is just so precious and I love it. So obviously I had to give it a 5 out of 5 stars. Rude break! The next book is one that I'm very late to the party to reading and has had a lot of hype, but I listened to the audiobook and I can see why everybody loves it so much. And that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you didn't know already, if you have been living under a rock, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo blew up BookTube last year, like literally blew it up. Everybody was raving about it, everybody was loving it, there was so much hype around it, it was ridiculous. And obviously when there comes a very hyped book, there is the worry that you are not going to love that book as much as everybody else does when you read it. So obviously, like I said, I'm very late to the party for reading this book, but it was worth the wait. I really enjoyed it, not gonna lie. This story basically follows a film star named Evelyn Hugo who hires a journalist to write her life story basically, and she talks about many different things. Obviously the main thing about her 7 husbands and how she came to fame and what it is like being a film star in the 1950s and 60s. And this book also talks about Evelyn's sexuality, that she is bisexual, and I did know about this going into the book, but I didn't realise it was such a main part and a main plot of the book, which was a really pleasant surprise. I really enjoyed that, and seeing how she handles that and how she manages it, obviously as being a big film star when it is not acceptable, and I don't think it was even legal back then to be gay or bi or anything along those lines. So it was really wonderful to see. That was actually one of my favourite parts of this book, and I really came to love and care for Evelyn. She is a very imperfect character. She does a lot of things that are not great at all, but you see her motives behind them and how they have made impacts in her life. And my favourite character, I love Evelyn, and one of my other favourite characters was Harry. I love the friendship between Evelyn and Harry. It was so wonderful and such a really nice, healthy friendship, and I just adored that so much. I have no critiques on this book. Like, I really enjoyed the audiobook. I don't know whether I would have enjoyed it as much if I had physically read it, but I really need to get my hands on a copy because I adore this book so much. I would definitely say I prefer it to Daisy Jones and the Six. A lot of people do seem to say that. I did enjoy Daisy Jones. I feel like I would have liked it more if I had listened to the audiobook, or I had waited until the hype had died down a bit, because I feel like the hype definitely ruined it for me. But I'm so glad that I kind of waited a little bit longer to listen to Evelyn Hugo, because it was so worth it. And it is one of my favourite books of the year, and it has probably made it onto my favourite books of all time list as well. And yeah, you probably don't need me to talk about it anymore because there's been enough people on BookTube talking about it. But if you haven't read it, please go and read it. It is wonderful, it is worth the hype. Just go in with zero expectations and it will raise them to the roof, to the stars. Just, it'll raise them, it'll be worth it. Go and read it, go and listen to it. It is wonderful. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So of course I had to give this book a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book is Longbourn by Jo Baker. This book has been on my radar for quite a while now, and I managed to acquire a copy of it earlier this year, so I picked it up fairly recently, and it was also another pleasant surprise. This book basically is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, but from the servant's perspective, and you kind of get an insight to what it was like to be a servant working in a grand house at that time. And I didn't know what to expect going into this book apart from what I just told you, and like I said, I did really enjoy it. It really shows you the reality of what it was like to be a servant at that time, and it takes you through the jobs that they do have affected their bodies and the hardships on their bodies, like how hard work it is physically and also emotionally, about what they want out of life, about how some of them have bigger plans than just working for a rich old man in a house and caring for him and his family, how they have dreams and aspirations and things that they want to do with their lives apart from the current jobs that they are doing. And it really brought home the reality of that, and I really did enjoy that aspect of it, because this is technically like a historical fiction, and I'm not a historical fiction fan. It's definitely not my genre, but I did really enjoy the aspect of seeing the reality of servants in this. Obviously the story does loosely follow the Pride and Prejudice story and what happens, but it also has a lot of other elements in it as well. Obviously you have the main servant, which is Mrs. Hill, who is the housemaid, and you also follow the other servants who are younger, especially Sarah, and there is a footman called James, and you kind of get to know his backstory. He's a bit mysterious when he comes in. Nobody knows where he's come from or what his previous jobs were. He's very vague about it. But in this book you get to see his history and how he ended up at Longbourn and all the hardships that he had gone through, especially during the time of war. I don't have any critiques on this book, to be honest with you. The only thing that I didn't like is that there is some animal cruelty in this, so please be aware of that before going into it. But this is one of my many Pride and Prejudice retellings that I have wanted to read, and now it is ticked off my list, and I have many more that I am hoping to read, because obviously I love this story so much. My channel name is kind of based on Pride and Prejudice. So I really enjoyed this book, and if you're looking for a good Pride and Prejudice retelling, I would definitely recommend it. So overall I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars, I think. I feel like I should give it more, like a 4.75, I should have given it a 5-star reading, to be honest with you. I haven't, but for the moment it is a 4.5 stars. And the final book that I have read recently is Eliza and her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. If you didn't know already, this is one of my favourite books of all time, and I've recently done my 3rd reread of it, which I have also done a reading vlog for, so you can expect that at some point soon in the future. But if you didn't know, Eliza and her Monsters follows a girl named Eliza Merk, who is one of the biggest web comic creators on the internet. She has created a comic called Monstrous Sea, which is extremely popular and has millions of viewers, and many people love it. Online, Eliza is a superstar. She is what's classed as kind of being famous, but in real life she is very much a loner. She doesn't have any friends at school. She is known for being a bit of a weirdo because she doesn't talk to anybody, and it is just, she's very closed off from the world in terms of being in real life. Then one day a new boy named Wallace comes to her school, and she finds out that he is one of the most popular fanfiction writers for her webcomic, yet he doesn't know that she is the creator of this comic, and the story goes off from there. And that is all you need to know. This was my 3rd reread of this book, and I did annotate it this time. And I must admit, I don't feel like I enjoyed it as much as my previous reads. I feel like that was because I read this book in 4 days, and for me that is very good. Like, I'm lucky to read 2 books a month. So for me to read a book that is not far off 400 pages in 4 days is pretty impressive, and I feel like I didn't enjoy it as much because I was rushing myself through it too much. I wasn't slowing down and enjoying it, and especially because I was vlogging my experience rereading this, I kind of wanted to do it over a weekend, so then it's in a confined space, so I'm not doing clips over like a couple of weeks, and that definitely hindered my enjoyment of it, which is really a shame because, like I said, it's one of my favourite books of all time, and even though there were times where I felt like, oh, I don't want to read, but I'm going to push through anyway, sometimes that works and you get back into the book, but other times it doesn't. And that was kind of the case for me, which really, like I said, I'm really gutted that it meant I didn't enjoy my reread as much as I thought I was going to. But it happens, and nonetheless I still really enjoy this book, and I still gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. But I feel like next time I read this, I might not do it every year. I might wait 2 years until I next read this book, so then I can kind of recover, because this has sort of put me in a book slump, rereading this and reading it so fast in my experience. So I'm just kind of going to be careful about next time I read this, and to just make sure I take my time and fully enjoy it, because it is such a wonderful story, and like I said, I love it with all my heart. So I still gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, still really love it. Don't rush reading your favourite books, okay? Because it does hinder the enjoyment, at least for me it did. But yeah, there's nothing else to say. I still love this book. It will still be one of my all-time favourites. So there you go. So those are all the books I have read recently. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and make sure to let me know in the comments down below some books that you have read recently. I would love to know what you have been reading. If you like this video, then please make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more bookish videos from me, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you will be noted every time I post a new video. As always, I will leave the links to my social media along with the links to my Goodreads and my blog in the description down below for you guys. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!